guys, today is going to be a little different. I actually wanted to try drawing some Resident Evil characters. I don't know if you guys know what Resident Evil is. It's a pretty famous game, so you've probably heard about it even if you've never played it, and you probably aren't entirely sure what it's about, because that's how I was just not that long ago. I knew what Resident Evil was. I knew it was like a horror game. I assumed it was only horror games, which, well, I quickly learned that's not entirely true, but that's what I imagined it was. And I didn't know anything about it because I only ever heard about it in like magazines and stuff like that, but I never actually played the games or actually knew the characters at all. So I feel like I'm only recently discovering what Resident Evil is, and the reason for that is because my brother, both my brothers actually, one's younger than me, one's my older brother, and they are both have been obsessed with Resident Evil lately, especially my oldest brother. He decided he wanted to go back and play all the old games because they recently had Resident Evil 7 was like a really cool actually went back to a horror genre and was like really well done, and he loved that game. And then they came back with the Resident Evil 2 remake, and that was also really cool, and they loved that game. So he wanted to go back and play all the games just to feel like he could be part of the fandom. I don't know if other people are like this, but usually whenever they start liking something, even if it's a newer game, they feel the need to go back and play all the old ones, even if they aren't necessarily good games, just so that they can feel like they're part of the fandom or understand what's happening. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else. Like, I've done that before with certain things where normally I just watch the cutscene movies if the gameplay is like not that great and I just wanted to know the story. But for him, he likes to play through every single game. So that has been real fun, and I've recently started watching him do it. Like, I went down there, I say down there because he, in his house, there's a basement that has this TV he plays games on, and I always say, go down there whenever I'm going down there to watch him play a game or have some free time. So that's what I mean. But I once went to watch him play a game for a little bit, and he was playing this game that looked absolutely horrible, to be honest. The first thing I saw it, and it just looked terrible. The graphics weren't great, and the voice acting was even more horrendous. And it was an old Resident Evil game. I'm not sure entirely which one it was I was watching at the time, because it was before I knew what it was, and before I actually was paying attention, so I don't really remember. I think it may have been Resident Evil. Oh, it was Resident Evil 0. Yeah, I think Rebecca was in it. I think. I don't remember exactly, because at the time I didn't know any of the characters, so it's hard to remember which one he was playing at the time. I could probably ask him. But I saw that, and at first I was like, this is so bad. This is so dorky. I don't know what this is. And it was like humorous to me, and it is still kind of humorous, that bad voice acting, you know. But also, the more I started watching him play those games, the more I got into the story and the more I got into the characters, even though sometimes I hated the characters, but I hated them in a good way. I don't know how to explain it. Like, in the fourth game, Leon, which is the guy you see here on the right, when he was younger, he went to go find the president's daughter, which her name was Ashley, and she was obnoxious, to say the least. She was so useless. She couldn't do anything, and you had to try and save her the entire time, which makes sense. I mean, you're going to save the president's daughter. You can't really expect her to, like, know kung fu or something, but she didn't, and she was really obnoxious, and I actually hated her so much at the beginning, but then the more I watched them play that game, the more I actually became to like her a lot, and I actually started loving her character, just not because she was useless, but because she was, like, annoying yet lovable at the same time. That happens sometimes with characters, where the character is just obnoxious, but you love them for it, and that's what that was like. It's also with Steve. And, in Code Veronica, Steve was he was a character where one of the main characters had found him when they were on this island, and he was also like that. He wasn't useless though. Like, he could use a gun and whatnot, and he was able to hold his own. But he was obnoxious, but obnoxious in a lovable way. So I started loving these characters. At first I thought Ada Wong is the one you see here on the left. I know you guys are probably really confused because I'm really bad at explaining this. But Ada, I kind of like the idea of her being with Leon. There's not really much like shipping or much relationships in this type of game. The best I've seen, there hasn't been a whole lot of it now that I think about it. Like Claire and Steve, like they showed a little bit. But then it's just, I don't want to spoil it for if you guys ever watch it, but it's a really old game, so I probably shouldn't be scared to spoil it. But Steve ended up dying. But I don't think he's dead. I think he's gonna come back at some point because I don't want him to die because I like that character a whole lot. And Ada here, at first I hated her too. I think I go through this a lot where I watch something, I'm like, man, these characters are obnoxious. The next second I'm like, I love this character. But I saw them in the Resident Evil 2 remake. That was the first time I saw them. And I was like, what is this? That's supposed to be an FBI agent. What is she wearing? That doesn't make any sense. But then I realized later that she's not actually an FBI agent. And she's always done this where she, you know, wears crazy, like, I don't know, pretty outfits on her missions and high heels, which I don't know how she manages to maneuver in high heels. But, you know, that's just what her character's always been like. And her character revolves around that. So I always think that's really cool. And at first I hated it. I hated that fact about her. I thought it was so silly that just because she's a girl, she wears high heels and does all that, and, you know. But the more I realized not all the characters are that way, and she's the only one who is that way, it makes it feel like her character's more unique. I thought it was like all the women were going to be wearing high heels during the zombie apocalypse, but that's not how it was. And I actually really like her character now. At first I didn't, but I do now after watching all the games. So like that, I even made my brother watch the cutscene movies with me on some games because he already played them, like the first one, the first remake, and the second game, and the third game, and I didn't see any of those movies. So he watched them again with me, and I've been so obsessed with it recently. Like, I really like the characters. They're dorky but lovable. Like, one of my favorite things about it is Wesker, which is Albert Wesker is one of like the main villains, pretty much the main villain, I would think. I mean, for some of the characters, like there's a certain group of characters I feel like he's more involved with than others, but in the end I think he's pretty much one of the main villains overall. And he is dorky. He has his hair slicked back, he's wearing sunglasses, and he's like what you'd imagine to be the most 90s villain you could possibly imagine. And he had terrible voice acting in the first game. And also, like, they changed his voice actor, but his voice actor started sounding like Squidward, and I actually love it. I love that voice actor so much for that. And it's just, he's so iconic. I know I said iconic unironically, and I'm really sorry about that. But the character is just very unique. I've never seen that type of character in any other game, so I actually started liking him. Because at first I was like, this is just so dorky, but the more you play it, the more you can't help but like it. I don't know if that makes sense. If any of you guys have ever played Resident Evil, let me know what you guys think, and also let me know, oh my goodness, if you actually like the story, or if you just played like a game and thought, man, this is too terrible, I can't do this. Because I feel like everyone goes through that where they listen to the voice acting in some of the early games and they just can't handle it. And also some of the gameplay in the early games is not so great. But like I said before, I thought this game was like a horror genre where it was like only like subtle horror aspects with like scary, not so many enemies. But I quickly realized that kind of was thrown out the window real quickly. Like in some of the earlier games it was more horror, and they did go back to horror in the 7th game, which I'm glad about, because I always thought like more subtle horror was more like interesting, especially when I'm thinking Resident Evil, because I don't know, I always imagined that would be more of a scary game. But most of them felt like Call of Duty almost, where that's went full military, or like Left 4 Dead, or like in the 6th game felt like Left 4 Dead, and it didn't feel very scary. And then the 5th game was just full on Call of Duty, I swear. And it wasn't scary whatsoever. And it didn't feel like what I imagined Resident Evil would feel like. So I'm excited that they're going back to more horror like aspects, and I would be excited to see what they do next, because like I said, I've been obsessed with it, and we watched some of the animated movies. We haven't watched any of the live action yet. I'm excited to like go look at the live action just because I know it's gonna be terrible, and I know it's going to mess up the characters I like a lot. Because my favorite character is Leon, and I'm scared he's gonna get messed up real bad. And that's the finish of my drawing. Let me know if you like this type of drawing. It was a real quick doodle. I just sketched it on paper and then colored it digitally, and it's Leon and Ada Wong, or Leon Kennedy, and I kind of shipped them, so that's why. I know that's really pathetic, but I'm just a very pathetic person sometimes. So let me know what you guys think, and also let me know if you ever knew anything about Resident Evil, or if you ever enjoyed it or whatnot, because I'm honestly really curious what you guys think about the game. And again, thank you guys so much for watching.